The Numbers Game with Gil Alexander on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSIN will be broadcasting live from NBA Summer League now through July 17th. Catch the edge with Jonathan Von Tobel and Matt Humans, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, live from the NBA Summer League every weekday. We'll also have special guests, exclusive content, and live updates all throughout VSIN shows. For more, follow us at VSIN Live on Twitter and at VSIN Live on YouTube. By the way, earlier on the show, Chris Felica shouted out Jason Weingarten at Spreadopedia for putting out this, not for putting out, but just he was making note, I should say, about this story, which is just a spectacular betting story here about. This is actually, we should give the credit to who Jason is tweeting it from. It's Jordan Elliott, who writes for the BBC. But it was essentially, he says, unbelievable story from India today. A group of farmers and unemployed youngsters have been busted for running a fake Indian Premier League and conning Russian punters into betting on it. Just one more detail I want to share with this is that the group streamed the matches on YouTube, Jeff. They took turns wearing kits of Chennai Super Kings, Mumbai Indians, and Gujarat Titans jerseys. The stream had downloaded sound effects to make it more realistic. They even hired a commentator who sounded like the actual commentator, or an actual commentator. This went on for 2 weeks. They got away with this.
It's amazing they got away with it for more than 1 hour, Gil.
Jason Weingarten's texted me. Jason's texted me about this. It's the best. He goes on to simply say, Jason does, I want to get the quote right. He goes, "That's always been one of my dreams, to get a fake game listed and lined." We all have our aspirations. That is Jason's. Ladies and gentlemen, Las Vegas Chris in studio. You would think he'd be like, "Oh, I'm so excited to be here." But he literally says to me off air, he goes, "I just needed to get out of the house." It's Las Vegas Chris, everybody. How you doing, man?
Good morning. How's it going?
Multiple contest winner, for those who aren't familiar with Las Vegas Chris, here in the desert. The Palms, Last Man Standing, college football. You split something the other year. I can't even remember. NFL. You finished second and fifth at Circa. Or as you like to say, a bad year.
It was a bad year.
By comparison. Yeah. You expect a good year. How you doing, man? You good?
It's free Slurpee day. So
is it really?
I'm going to go get a Slurpee.
What do you mean? You just roll in there, you get a Slurpee?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, it's the 11th, 7-Eleven.
Yeah, it's positive EV.
Oh, it is 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Wow. Small Slurpee, yeah. Hopefully they still do it.
It's only a small. Well, they'll let you upgrade.
What a country. What a beautiful thing. All right. Well, I don't want to prevent you from getting as many Slurpees as you can, but there are some topics that have come up here in recent days that I wanted to bring up. First of all, before we even get into some of the topics, Alan Dink Dinkinson, who is a very famous pro bettor and beloved by so many here in Las Vegas and beyond, has just a colorful history of sports betting. He is not doing very well. He is in hospice care. And so we wanted to send a shout out to him.
Yeah, we do.
And Spanky was saying on Twitter, Spanky was tweeting out that he did talk to Dink and he sounded good. So we hope for the best there. But one of the honors that I had during the pandemic, as you might imagine, we were sort of struggling with no sports going on. We were struggling for, what are we going to do in terms of content? And I just decided I was going to sort of, you even mentioned this the other day, that you've gone into Roy Firestone mode and some stuff. So during the pandemic, I got to interview so many great legendary bettors, from Alan Boston, to Spanky, to Alan Dinkinson. And Dink was kind enough to join us on the show. And there's many things from it that were pretty poignant, but one of them that struck a nerve, not struck a nerve, but that resonated with you was something Dink had to say, just sort of putting things in context. Here's how this brief exchange went. We can comment on it. You're thinking of writing a book now?
Yeah, I'm thinking of writing a book. I just know how my vocabulary, I know how good Beth was as a writer, and I so pale up behind her that, and I look at I write a chapter and I go, oh, God, this is terrible, and then I send it to her and she goes, she makes suggestions and I go, you may as well write the book for me because that's what it's going to be. She's just corrects all my flaws and my lack of a good vocabulary and lack of setting a scene. And, that's one of my strengths is I know my weaknesses. I think that's, somebody once described that as my strength, that I know my limitations and I don't try to exceed them. which is very important in gambling.
Which is very important in gambling, is what he says. It gets a little garbled there at the end. But it goes obviously beyond gambling. But he was saying one of his strengths is he knows his weaknesses. He knows his limitations. And that resonated with you.
Yeah, I think that's probably a weakness of people that start off betting, is that they think they are better than they are, and they think they need fewer people to help them than they do, and they don't network. And Dink laid it out perfectly there. Know your weaknesses, embrace your weaknesses, and work with your weaknesses is basically his point. And it's about networking. And at some point, either the game's going to pass you by or you're going to want to branch out. You need to seek out guidance of other people and exchange information. And I actually have people that actually say, well, that's just silly. You should just keep your stuff to yourself. And I understand what they mean a little bit, but, if you're trading good information, you're trading good information, and that's what it's about. But you have to be humble, and you have to realize if you don't have an edge, you don't have an edge. Know your weakness. Don't be stubborn and sit there and bang your head against the wall and bet baseball every day if you're not winning.
And your edge changes over time.
It changes,
Yes.
yeah.
Sometimes it's your best sport, and then other times it will go away.
Yeah, when scoring elevated in NFL and college, my edges changed.
Anyway, I encourage anybody who wants to. Jeff Fogel tweeted out that interview with Alan Denkinson, which is, again, from right in the middle of the pandemic from 2 years ago. And it's so hard to imagine that was 2 years ago. It feels like it was 10 years ago. The pandemic does all kinds of weird things to your brain, timing-wise. And if you don't prefer to listen to the audio of a podcast with Dink, which was wonderful because he was so honest and so transparent about so much, I believe Ben Fawkes just put out an edited transcript to that interview on VSIN.com. So you can check that out as well if you just prefer to read it on your own rather than listen. But I do encourage people to go listen. As always, so many interesting things. Speaking of podcasts, let's start there. So you consume how many podcasts a week, would you say?
It depends on how much energy and time I have, but I'm oftentimes running 2 on each of my phones. So I find a way to listen to 2 at a time sometimes.
And you say you like to listen to ones you can learn from and ones that you find not so worthy because you like to hear what others are thinking.
Oh, absolutely. I find just as much value in what I would call, a startup type podcast where there's limited knowledge or just silly views. I don't know why. I just value from everybody. I get value from everybody's point of view, and I just want to kind of absorb the pulse of what people are thinking. I think that's valuable. I don't want to absorb the pulse of just the sharp guys that supposedly win.
Here is a tweet from Las Vegas Chris about this subject. 15 minutes into a podcast, they finally stopped talking about themselves, had another that went 11 minutes in. The amount of time some waste on podcasts is incredulous. The media content I share doesn't even introduce ourselves unless we have a guest. Get to the point. Now, that's interesting because talking about themselves is definitely an off-putting thing.
It's getting ridiculous. I mean, there's podcasts that I used to love that I can't even watch. I can't even listen to anymore. They're just become so full of themselves, and it's frustrating. And I got a lot of responses to this tweet in agreement. It's getting frustrating that people want to babble for 6-7 minutes in. And what we're doing on YouTube, we don't even introduce ourselves. We dive right into the topic as if we already introduced ourselves and the topic, and we're trying to provide quality content that just gets to the point. Nobody wants to hear us talk about ourselves.
Talking about yourselves is one thing. Like that, I can totally agree with you on that. But then other things, like, okay, so take, for instance, I'll point it back at me. I'll look in the mirror. So the Megapod, let me just use that. We don't talk about ourselves. But the Megapod has gone over the years from like picks right for, like a certain format of picks. And then sometimes we'll have guests now, though, that want a stray topic at the outset, right? It's never about ourselves, but they want to talk about something else that's not the picks. That could go on for 15, 20 minutes, and that might annoy some people too. But I would sort of put that under the category of it really does depend what you're looking for.
Well, is there a more valuable commodity than time?
No.
Okay, don't waste my frickin' time.
Right, but what I'm saying is some people might view that aside as not wasting time. Like that might even be more interesting to them than the picks. Really depends what you're going for.
I agree with that, but you're talking about a different situation than people just talking about themselves, and they think they're all cute about it, and it's just asinine. Some of these guys are getting so full of themselves, and it's just frustrating. And I got a lot of responses to the exact same point. And I don't understand whether these people are trying to elongate so that they make more money. I don't know, but it's just ridiculous. These people that throw in all these ads, they make peanuts. I saw Captain Jack tweet with all his hundreds of thousands of views, he made peanuts. So some of these people are putting these ads and these elongated conversations in for no reason.
It's the old, someone said, I have 29 jobs. The only one I don't make money from is my podcast. Coming back, more Las Vegas Chris next.
A numbers game with Gil Alexander on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks, unleashes the spirit of Las Vegas with BetMGM rewards. Every time you make a wager at BetMGM, you can earn BetMGM rewards points that you can redeem for online bonus credits, that is, like free bets and risk-free tokens. Planning a trip to Vegas, you can also convert your BetMGM points into MGM rewards points that you can use towards dining, shows, and hotel rooms at over 20 MGM Resorts properties located on the Las Vegas Strip and nationwide. BetMGM rewards, sports betting's premier loyalty program featuring exclusive offers, incredible experiences, and valuable perks. When you wager on the BetMGM app, sign up with BetMGM or log on today to get an even bigger piece of the action with BetMGM rewards. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's Gil Alexander. We get tweets at Beating the Book. Always appreciate the feedback from all. Jason Stark, not that Jason Stark, but a different Jason Stark. He said, hey, Gil, you definitely called Jeff Grover Cleveland last week. Jeff, I definitely called you Grover Cleveland. This just did. Let's see here. Web 12-66, ready to go to class with Las Vegas Chris. Got my notepad and sharpened my pencil. James Spivey, in other words, keep your strengths close, but keep your weaknesses closer. Talking about the Dink audio that we were just listening to. Las Vegas Chris, kind enough to join us in studio again here at the South Point on a numbers game at VSIN, the Sports Betting Network. You want to give everybody your YouTube channel?
We're doing great stuff on YouTube right now. We're doing process videos. We had Paul Stone on last week. We've got Brad Powers coming on Wednesday, and we've got some other notable guests coming on. No BS. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're just talking process, and the reaction is just wonderful.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I miss the days where I had endless time to do process podcasts. I had like Dr. Bob on like 11 years ago doing stuff like that. Would have any number of handicappers, right? Rufus would come on. We'd go for Joe Peta for hours and not hours and hours, but we'd like go on for an hour and a half talking about that stuff. I just don't have the time to do it anymore. It's awesome that you're
exactly.
Yeah.
And people have downtime here during the summer, and it is all about process. And when it gets to the regular season, you hear from all the people that do these podcasts and shows, it's all about picks. If you're not giving out picks, then the viewership is just plummets.
There will always be an audience that just wants picks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and we'll judge you, as you and I talked off air, not about what you've done over the last 4 years, but if you had a bad 2 weeks. That's
You're only as good as your last week.
You're only as good as your last week. In fact, you're a bum about your last week. You're like, okay, yeah. Okay, a couple more from Las Vegas, Chris. I see an issue with NFL cappers selling picks, but not betting their game before they release to clients. They bet it as their betting group hits the board and moves it right away, claim the original line and CLV bragging rights. I feel a capper should have his bets placed prior. You feel a capper should have his best plays. So this is a old thing that has been going on forever. You see an issue with selling picks but not betting their game before.
Right. How can you bet your game after you release it to your clients? It's idiotic.
Well, the counter to that is for some people, because some people will move it if they do so before, right? So
that's your problem.
Right, but I'm saying, like, let's take a Dr. Bob, right? He tries to do everything honestly. If he bets his game before he releases, that line's not even going to be there anymore.
It depends on how much he's betting and how he gets down. I mean,
well, no, because he has like 100 people behind him betting. That's the problem.
Right. But I go to great lengths to bet my games and to spread them out and not move the market. And
well, that's the same. You're basically trying to have the same effect. You're trying to be kosher about it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but you've got select people that are intentionally know that their betting group is going to bet it simultaneous to their clients getting it. And I just
ridiculous.
think that's not the way to go about doing business.
Not at all. That should be a no-brainer to everybody.
I think so.
Yeah.
I had a lot of positive response on that.
Now, we don't have a tweet for this one, but this is getting back to process. I think this is a great question. You and I were talking about this off air, which is you do your preseason work. I asked this very question again, say of someone like who's a college football originator, like a Dr. Bob so many years ago, where it's like, okay, you do all this work. You're in July. You're doing team by team. Like in college, is 130 teams, right? Pro, obviously, 32 these days. And you go through them and you're just, in baseball, I used to do it, right? Just 30 teams grinding through preseason and all of your process. And then the season begins, whether it's April for baseball, whether it's September for pro or college football. I know, late August too, for college. And then a week goes on and you're like, well, that is right and that is wrong and interesting. The question becomes, when does your preseason work lop off? Do you go 4 weeks into the season where it becomes irrelevant? What's that, or is it an incremental drop-off? Like some of the analytics guys, whether it's Aaron Schatz at Pro Football Outsiders, there is a percentage that lops off as the season goes on. What is it for you?
I think it's going to vary by team and by their schedule. You have to get to the point of this team is not who I thought they were as quickly as possible if they aren't. And obviously week 2 is overreaction week. We all know that. You can't overreact to one game or 2 games. But at what point do you have to sit there and leave your predispositions coming into the season behind you? And that might be as early as week 3. It might be week 4. I remember writing last year about Kansas City. I go, Kansas City is who they are. Everybody's afraid of what they can do, but they are this team here. And so you might give some teams more length, so to speak. But, it's all different. You can't do it by games. You have to look at the circumstances of injuries, COVID, their schedule and such. And that might be 2-3 games for one team, 8 games for another team.
That is I'm so glad I asked you specifically that question, because that is not the analytics guy's response, right?
They pick it off by game, and that's right. Not the way you do it.
Not the way you do it, according to you.
No.
Yeah. From your standpoint, team by team kind of thing, schedule by schedule.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ready for the topic that we've been trying to squeeze in the last few times, but we haven't had a chance to. We have a few minutes, and this is timely because the great James Caan passed away.
Yeah, Jesus.
James Caan, who was the lead in the original The Gambler movie. Did you like the original?
Yeah, of course. It's painful to watch.
I watched it. People were saying, "Oh, it's the best gambling movie of all time." I watched it maybe 6-7 years ago. I don't know if I was in a bad mood or wasn't. I was like, I don't know if I could watch that again. I didn't love it.
Well, I put out my list of my favorite movies, and there were several movies that are great gambling movies that you don't want to see again, like Owning Mahoney. I mean, that's a worthwhile movie, but I don't want to watch that again.
Okay, so according to Las Vegas Chris, a topic that we have not shared with Chris in maybe in a while, but maybe ever, if I'm not mistaken, but want to get your favorite gambling movies of all time.
I tweeted these out in no particular order, but people thought I tweeted them in order. But I remember The Hustler is one of my favorite movies. I remember getting on a plane hadn't slept in 36 hours flying back from Thailand. And I'm like, I'm going to put this black and movie on. It's going to put me out like a light. And like 2 hours and 40 minutes later, I'm like, God, why did I do that? But that's just absolutely classic. Just so well done.
Paul Newman.
Yeah, Paul Newman. And there's a lot of stars, if you're an old fart like me, that you'll recognize that were really young at the time. And the Casino, I love Casino. I don't know how you turn that movie off.
Shot many of the parts shot at Piero's here in town.
Everybody loves Rounders. You got to go with that. Diggstown is so underrated, in my opinion, with a great cast and just great energy.
Diggstown, really? Okay.
Yeah. You're not familiar with that?
I'm not.
Oh my!
I am,
gosh.
but I am, but I never saw it. I remember when it. Yeah. No, I've never seen it.
You know, the problem.
Never seen that.
The problem is when you see a movie 20 years after it comes out, it's not going to be, have the same.
Well, that's how I felt about also, but The Gambler too. Like some movies stand the test of time, others are slow, right? So that's how I felt about the original, The Gambler.
Big Hand for the Little Lady, 1966. Love that flick. And Brady Cannon, that's one of his top 2 or 3 movies.
Big Hand for the Little Lady.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Ooh, these are good.
Jason Robards, Henry Fonda, Joanne Woodward,
Wow.
and a bunch of other character actors that
man.
you'd recognize. Just a classic.
Yeah.
Just a classic. It's so good. Color of Money, Ocean's 11, House of Games, very underrated movie.
I'm writing all these down, man.
Any David Mamet movie is a good movie, I'll tell you that.
Okay. All of those in no particular order.
No particular order.
I think we all can agree the greatest gambling movie of all time is Trading Places, starring Eddie Murphy.
But boy, did I love that movie.
Is that
It's a good movie.
in the same way that people want to want to crowbar, Die Hard into Christmas movies? Trading Places, fine gambling motion picture.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe the Die Hard thing. Anyway, we appreciate all that. There's some good suggestions on that. What was the one with Jason Robards and Henry Fonda and all that? What was that?
Big Hand for the Little Lady.
Big Hand for the Little Lady. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. It's
Widely
fun.
available, I would
I
imagine.
would think so.
Okay. Las Vegas Chris, everybody. Always great to have you by. It's getting closer and closer to football, so we cherish the moments we have with you, sir. Thank you for stopping in.
My pleasure. Always.
LVC, as he likes to be called also, at Las Vegas Chris without the H on Twitter. Lombardi Line is next. Dave Ross is your host. Enjoy from VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.